Top story on ABC News Breakfast this morning. The Labor Party is on the verge of overturning its long-held opposition to selling uranium to India. The Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, has changed her mind and she's now backing a push to end the ban. The issue will be debated at next month's Labor Party National Conference.
Ms Gillard says the policy should be reversed, but she wants an assurance from India that Australian uranium will only be used for peaceful purposes.
For more, the Greens Senator Christine Milne joins us now from Tasmania. Senator Milne, good morning. What's your view on this policy backflip?
Well, the Greens uphold the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which Australia is a signatory to, and so we are totally opposed to this idea of selling uranium to India because it undermines international law, and you either support international law or you don't.
At the same time, though, the Prime Minister is saying there will be very strict safeguards to ensure that any uranium sent to India will be used for peaceful, not nuclear or military purposes.
Well, we've heard all that before. The reality is you can't track it. Once the uranium leaves Australia and goes into the system, no matter what undertakings that are made about separation, you've always got the issues of displacement. So whereas Indian uranium or from other sources can then be put into the weapons program if they can source uranium from somewhere else for their energy program. We've already seen that when John Howard told us the same thing with Russia, when Australia decided to sell uranium to Russia. Now we have a situation where the world is talking about bombing Iran because Iran has received nuclear facility and materials from Russia, and this is the whole thing. You cannot guarantee non-proliferation once you start selling uranium into a world market, and this is a country that has not signed up to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It is a nuclear weapons country. India's got about 80 to 100 nuclear weapons. It has short and medium range ballistic missiles. It's pursuing nuclear submarines. I think this is actually just a pragmatic decision to facilitate Australian uranium miners and to facilitate the relationship with the US at Australia and global security expense.
Don't you trust the Indian government not to ensure that any uranium from Australia won't be used to build nuclear weapons?
Well, the issue here is we have had an international treaty which has successfully contained the spread of nuclear weapons over a long period of time. There are 3 or 4 actually non-signatories. There's India, Pakistan, Israel and North Korea. So if we're going to say that we trust India, what are we going to say to Pakistan? This is one of the most unstable regions in the world. There is already a nuclear arms race occurring there, with the Pakistanis racing to develop more in terms of nuclear weapons. So this is a real issue for global security, and I'm hoping that ALP members will say to Martin Ferguson and the Prime Minister that they're not prepared to facilitate Australian and international mining interests at the expense of regional and global security.
Well, let's look at it from another front. Martin Ferguson is telling the ABC this morning that he believes it's a plus in terms of climate change mitigation because any uranium sent to India will be used to build, say, nuclear power stations, which of course have zero emissions. As a party that supports climate change moves and the carbon tax, that's surely something you've got to support.
Well, certainly we support rapid reduction in emissions, and there's a big opportunity in India to, particularly in rural India, to go with renewable energy and distributed systems. But after Fukushima, I can tell you in India there is a massive civil movement against the construction of nuclear reactors, and what we've seen recently is the academics and the retired judges and defence personnel joining the farmers and fishermen in massive public protest against this rollout of nuclear power stations, partly because they've seen what's happened in Japan and also very concerned about the Russian technology that they're buying and its dodginess. And frankly, I think you're going to see massive civil unrest, and the anti-nuclear movement in Australia will certainly support the civil society movement in India, because what we would like to see is India massively transform its electricity generation system by taking up the opportunities that renewables offer.
OK, as you're often fond of telling us, Christine Milne, the Greens are in a power-sharing arrangement with the Labor Party. What are you going to do about the Prime Minister's announcement?
Well, the Prime Minister can go ahead and sell uranium to India without anything going through the Parliament. And even if it did, it's very clear that the Prime Minister has joined Tony Abbott in moving to the Conservative side of politics, in saying that let's ditch international law in favour of maximising profits from multilateral mining companies. And so the majority of members of the federal Parliament clearly think that the economic interests of a few corporations is more important than international law and the Non-Proliferation Treaty. The Greens don't agree, and we will campaign strongly against this move.
But there's nothing you can really do about it. You've got to concede that.
Well, that's exactly the case in terms of the parliamentary processes, because the government doesn't have to take it through the Parliament. But certainly in the lead up to the ALP conference, we will be campaigning with the public, because I think the Australian community won't be support this move, to try and make sure it doesn't go through the ALP conference.
Isn't this also the Prime Minister saying, well, the Greens do a lot of things as part of this power-sharing arrangement. One thing they won't and will never do is to dictate foreign and national security policy?
Well, that's exactly her view, and the fact of the matter is it's government policy to go ahead with this. We don't agree with it, and the Australian community will make their views known at the next election on that matter.
OK, Christine Milne, Hobart, thank you very much.
Thank you.